Shema Yisrael, Yahu Eloheinu, Yahu Echad. Baruch Shem Kebod Malkotho Leholam Voed.
Starts, I'll introduce us, okay? Shalom, everyone. This is Rab Malko, and I'm here with one of my chief disciples, Shaul, and we just wanted to do a really brief, informal video giving some very powerful revelations on a very old Kabbalist. So we're going to be discussing Rab Shlomoh Malko, as he's known. And he's was a very, probably one of the most famous Kabbalists of the past, 500 years or so. And, he's recognized by many Jews as, sort of being like one of the highest Kabbalists of, the past 1,000 years. Most Jews would probably consider him a true Grandmaster Kabbalist. And I would too, actually. That's the great secret here that we want to discuss, because there's just a really super fascinating history behind him, and I want to reveal here, I think for the first time openly, some really super crazy, explosive revelations that are revealed in his main book. And anyway, Shaul, do you want to maybe just give a brief history on Shlomo Malko, with David Rabuni and all of that? Just give a brief introduction of him and his relationship with David Rabuni, who David Rabuni is, and some of the fascinating history involved. Do you just want to give a brief intro, Shaul?
Yes. Thank you for having me. So, for starts, what we know about Rab Shlomoh Malko was that he was born to a family of conversos, and he was a genius, a child genius, and he grew up in the ranks of the Catholic establishment and became, from what we know of a bishop, and his name was Diego Perez. But through his interaction with his original faith of his ancestors, he shortly started to become known as the scholar for Hebrew, and he ended up going through a conversion back to Judaism, and he took on the name Shlomo Malko. He became a real Chacham, he became a real scholar, and was noticed by many people. Where he initially wanted David Rubani, from what I understand, to convert him back to Judaism, but David wouldn't do it. So he actually gave himself a Brit Milah. He actually circumcised himself, very similar to Abraham circumcised himself at an older age as well too. I believe he might have been still in his younger years, but he died at 32, from what we can know of, what we know of that as far as his official record. And he after he circumcised himself, obviously, David Rubani and him became quite close. David was quite fond of Rab Shlomoh Malko, and they traveled many places together. And what hopefully we can show you guys is that they were on an amazing mission, we can call it, that really transpired into the future of the secret societies in Europe, to be honest with you.
Why don't you speak to the whole Prester John matter and what's going on there, and their mission and everything? Why don't you expand upon that?
So Prester John is very interesting topic that for some reason in modern scholarship has almost been forgotten. Um, Literally almost been forgotten. No one talks about this, but few people. And Prester John was essentially a was there is a couple letters that circulated in Europe, and what's interesting is a lot of the letters which I have not been able to get my hands on yet. There is said to be a Hebrew letter from a king of the East named Prester John, and this was during the times when the Muslims were, taking over a lot of land, and Christians were fighting Muslims a lot. So there was a letter that circulated around Europe that said that there was a king of the East that was descended from the three Magi, as well as is part of the disciple Thomas's sect of Christians in the Far East, in India. Some say it was in Ethiopia. And what's interesting about this idea is David Rubani and Rab Sholomoh Malko both postulated, I would say more so David Rubani than Rab Sholomoh Malko, that they knew David Rubani. Anybody who knows anything about David Rubani is he was an adventurer, he was a mystic, he was a poet, he's a very, very interesting guy. Some say he was actually a midget, a dark-skinned midget, and he says that he was from the Far East, and that he was from the tribe of was from some Jews from the tribe of Gad and Reuben and from the Far East, and that he actually it's unclear if whether he thought Prester John was his brother or if he knew Prester John, but this was part of what David Rubani was selling to the Christian authorities, was that he needed guns and ships to make a Jewish war to fight against the Muslims. And so what they were trying to do is to get the Christians and the Muslims to fight, as well as give rise to essentially one of the first Zionist armies, right? One of the first true Jewish armies were going to be started with. Well, I can't say one of the first true Jewish armies. That's not right to say. But during the Middle Ages, during these after the destruction of the temple, there were other armies. But David Rubani and Rab Sholomoh Malko, that's what they were trying to do. Is they were trying to start an army to fight against the Muslims, but ultimately unite with Asab, with Christianity, right? And in fact, use the Christian armies as well too, to their advantage. And that's how Prester John fits into all of this.
Yeah, this is very, very fascinating. And I highly suggest everyone listening to, when they have some time, to look more into the whole Prester John matter of the Middle Ages. It's something that is remarkably very, very fascinating, very, very interesting. And one side point is that the reason David Rubani is called Rubani is because he claimed to be from the Lost 10 tribes, specifically from the tribe of Reuben. That was his claim. But it's just very, very interesting stuff. Extremely, extremely interesting, fascinating. I suggest all of you look more into it on your own time. But for me, the whole, Shlomo Malko to me is a very special figure, a figure that's kind of close to me personally because he descends from conversos, and my family descends from conversos as well. My bloodline goes all the way back to medieval Spain. If anything, we might even be related. And because he was a converso, just even like my family bloodline was. And so what's really interesting is that he called himself Shlomo Malko. That's the name he gave himself, I believe, because he believed that he was a Gilgul of, Melech Shlomo. And as you all know, I too am a Gilgul of Melech Shlomo. And so I'm currently trying to see if I can remember any, if since I'm a Gilgul of Melech Shlomo and he is too, then it's possible I was him in that lifetime. And so I'm trying to currently looking to see if I can remember anything from that particular lifetime that my divine spark was involved in. If you catch my drift, if you understand what I'm saying here. So really, really interesting stuff. And the other matter too is that he was a converso, right? He rose to a very high position within the Christian church. And the thing is that during this time, they're really pushing Christianity upon the Jews very forcefully. So many Jews, they're highly initiated into Christianity. They're not dumb. They're getting all the theology and knowledge of Christianity just forced upon them. And so a lot of these Jews, they have to come to this like important point in their life where they have to like either where they have to decide where they're like, okay, you know what, we have all this knowledge of Christianity. Either they're smart enough to understand that Christianity is true and that Yeshu is indeed the Mashiach, or in their great ignorance and stupidity they're going to reject it, right? And so I think what most people fail to realize is that a lot of Jews were smart, and once they got all this knowledge, a lot of them realized, like, what, this is all true. Like, it all makes sense. There's no question that Yeshu has to be the Mashiach here. So there's a lot of Jews that came to their senses and realized the truth. And some of them became famous, like, right, Saint John of the Cross, right? He was a Jew, he was a converso, and he became one of the highest, most famous Christian mystics of the Middle Ages, right? So he had a lot of Jews like this that were not dumb, and they're like, what, it's after having all this Christianity forced upon them, they woke up and they realized, what, this is true, that Yeshua is indeed the Mashiach. And so I think this is the same case with Shlomo Malko, because we have to understand that, like, when it comes to Messianic history, we cannot trust the Jews at all, right? We just cannot trust the Jews. Anytime it comes to the Mashiachim, the Jews cannot be trusted because they lie, they propagate their propaganda and their lies, and it's a very, very sad matter, right? Regarding Yeshu, everything the Jews have to say historically about Yeshu is not true and is false. And the same thing applies to Shabbatai Zvi and Jakob Frank. And so you just cannot trust the Jews on Messianic matters. And so I remember a while back, some time ago, long ago, I think I made a video or a post very briefly discussing Shlomo Malko, and I gave a hint and I said, we can't really trust the history regarding Shlomo Malko. Whatever the Jews are telling us regarding Shlomo Malko, there's more to this story than what they're telling us. It's probably not true. And as I've done more research into it, it looks like my assertion is correct, that we just can't trust the Jews. And so there's a lot more to the story regarding Shlomo Malko than meets the eye, and you really have to be able to read between the lines and dig really, really deep to get to the truth. And I've done that. I'm going to share some very explosive, powerful revelations here very shortly. But I personally, what it looks like to me is that Shlomo Malko was a Grand Master Jew at the Frankist level, and he knew that Yeshua was the Mashiach. And I'm going to give you some proof of that very here shortly. And so I think most Jews are ignorant, and they don't understand or know this, as I'm going to show here shortly. And so I think that's what the truth is. I think what really happened is, he was a Christian Gnostic. He understood Yeshua was the Mashiach, and then he reverted back to Judaism. But I think we read in the historical records that when Shlomo Malko and Deir Rabuni were on this huge mission to try to bring the apocalypse and try to bring the Mashiach, etc., right? Because I mean, Shlomo Malko was rubbing shoulders with a lot of the Illuminati during that time, and a lot of powerful figures and heads of state and countries. And when he reached the King of England, right, the King of England did not like him and rejected him and had him imprisoned back in Europe. And the story goes that they told him, either you convert to Christianity or you're gonna die at the stake. And he refused to convert back to Christianity, and so they martyred Shlomo Malko. Now, the way I reconcile that, based on what I just said, is that I think that you have to understand that Christianity and Catholicism during that time was very corrupt, right? The Catholic Church was ridiculously corrupt, very, very evil during that time. A lot of Christians knew this, and so I think I think the issue is that um, that Shlomo Malko, uh, the reason he refused to convert to Christianity, even though he was a Christian, essentially, was because he didn't want to be part of the corrupt Catholic Church and system during that time. I feel Christianity was way more corrupt and evil than, say, Judaism as a religion was during that time. So I think that's really what's going on. And so anyway, so now without further ado, I want to start sharing some of these really explosive revelations here. So let me see here how I can do this. Because I'm on my phone. All right, let's see here. How do I share this? Okay. Can you see my screen, Shaul?
Yes, I can.
Okay. How about now? Can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
So you can show our messages and everything?
Yep.
Okay, I gotta go back to the thing that you shared with me. Okay, here we go. So this here, you can see the poem here, Shaul?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so what I'm presenting here is a very secret poem that Shlomo Malko wrote. This is in his book. And it's a secret poem with it's a very highly encrypted poem. And I want to share some one really explosive, crazy revelation here. So understand that this is a song or poem that he wrote. It's highly encrypted. I mean, and it's highly encrypted. But I want to read you this one line here. In the Hebrew, it says, Haim. It says, so if you look at the middle, the yellow highlighted in the middle, the Hebrew there the Hebrew there says they saw Yeshua. The next line is, which is to us Adon or Lord, and then the next line is the flesh to us is God. So here he is basically saying, he's hinting that Yeshua is Lord. Okay, so right there he's saying Yeshua, basically that's a hint, right? He's saying Yeshua is to us the Lord. Okay, and then the third line, which is the most explosive line, is he's saying the flesh to us is God. He's basically saying this is God in the flesh. He's writing this kind of in a weird way because he's not. It's not like 100% like. I mean, it is very explicit, but it is written in a weird way. But it's to me, it doesn't get any more explicit than this. I mean, he's basically telling you in the Hebrew that Yeshua is Lord and he's God in the flesh. And this is just ridiculously explosive, right? Especially coming from a converso Jew. So, so this is really explosive. And what's interesting is that in the book, it presents this poem, and then later on in the book, it provides commentary on the poem. Is that right, Shaul?
Yes, yes. It provides a couple. It does not provide commentary on the specific section that we have here, for
Yeah.
obvious reasons, but it does provide hints in the other parts of the commentary as well, which I believe
Yeah.
we
So
will
that's
show.
what's really striking, right? Is that I saw commentary to the whole poem except for that part that I just read, right?
Right.
Like they don't why because how does an Orthodox Jew handle this, right? Orthodox Jew reading this, just out of curiosity, how does an Orthodox Jew reading this, you know, interpret this? Most Jews are too ignorant and too stupid to understand what's being said here, right? But if you're fluent in Hebrew and you read it, right, it's very obvious here. He's saying that Yeshua is Lord and that he's God in the flesh. I mean, this is ridiculously explosive. But I want to share another more Frankist revelation in his book. So let me go down to it. See if I can find it. Here we go. Um, so right here, in the second paragraph at the bottom in the Hebrew, it says, in the Hebrew, it literally says, Hamashiach yimatza be'aretz Edom, meaning that the Mashiach is found in the land of Edom. which is the land of the Christians. So right here, this is a powerful Frankist revelation, just proving that he was at the Frankist level, right? Saying the Mashiach is found in the land of Edom. That's where he's at. He's in the land of Edom, which was Yeshu. Yeshu, who is the Mashiach, is in the land of Edom. He goes on to say that when the time is, he says in the future, he will be fallen and he will subdue Edom. That's part of our ancient oracles, that the time is going to come when the Mashiach will destroy and subdue Edom as a whole. But it's very Frankish here. This is a really, really powerful Frankish revelation. Then I also wanted to share this picture. If you wanted to speak to this pic that you provided to me.
This is an interesting figure, which goes to show us of this secret tradition that you've spoken of many times. But this secret tradition that transcends the bounds of rabbinical Judaism, or even Christianity, and even Islam as well too. Because inside of this portrait of, it says there the Count of right. This figure here is a hard. You can't find much research on the man. There is a scholar who does have where I got these pictures from, who does have some information on him, and I'm sure everyone who's familiar with Frankist information in today's will be familiar with Paul Mekijeko. I think that's what you say. Mekijeko?
Paul Mekijeko, something like that. Yeah.
Yes. So he brings this to light and shows, and this is, a non-rabbinical. He was actually, if you take notice, he's wearing a red garment, right, which is the signification of Asaph. Which is, Mamash and Zohar, all over the place. It talks about this red garment. And, many people knew about this, but he's wearing a red garment and he's holding a section of Zohar. And at the end, at the bottom of it, he has some Arabic that was translated by Powell, and it alludes to, this is obviously post Shabtai Tzvi, right after this. This isn't during the same time of Rab Sholomoh Malko, but there is definitely a tradition of secret Kabbalists, per se, reading the Zohar with this idea of being inside Asaph, right? Being inside of Edom, looking on the outside like Asaph, but with the voice of Yaakov. Now let's Peshat. Obviously, there's way more levels when we talk about the voice of Yaakov and the hands of Asaph, looking like Asaph. But Peshat is that there's been mystics for thousands of years who looked like Asaph on the outside, but really for Yaakov speaking.
Yeah, indeed. So, all in all, it's very, very interesting, right? I just provided some really explosive, Christian Gnostic Frankist revelations, proving that that Shlomo Malko never abandoned his Christian faith. As a converso, he realized the truth that indeed Yeshua is the Mashiach, and it looks like there are a number of hints of that, some very explicit, as I shared with you in his writings. Unfortunately, I have not read his entire book. I just recently got it, and so I'll be pouring over it over the next few weeks. And if I find any more explosive revelations, which I'm sure I will, I'll be posting on my blog. So stay tuned to my blog. But just those very quick, powerful revelations are just ridiculously explosive. And it goes to show just the massive ignorance of Jews. For example, take, the famous Rab Jonathan H. right? All the Jews for the longest thought was a Holy Orthodox Jew. But now scholars have come on the scene and have proven without a shadow of a doubt that he was a full-blown Shabbatain grandmaster, right? And how many Jews have dealt with this?
Right.
How many Jews are like reconciling and dealing with this? Like, okay, for the past 200 years, we all believed that he was a Holy Orthodox Jew, and now scholars have proven that this guy was a Shabbatain. And there's other Rabbanim that scholars have proven were Shabbatain in nature. We know there's other books that have Shabbatain theology in them. So we have all these Jews just showcasing their immense stupidity and ignorance in just not realizing this and not coming to terms with the full truth. I think it's too much to handle for them, and it's a very, very sad affair and a very, very sad matter. But is there anything else you want to say, Shaul, before we conclude this video?
No, I think this is just the beginning in an amazing study that, to be honest, modern scholarship has completely left untouched. Uh, some of the topics we brought up here are obviously you won't hear anywhere else on the internet. Really, even the connections between um, Prester John and Rab Sholomoh Malko and David Ubani, right? That's a huge
Yeah.
connection that will allow us to understand really the Enlightenment, the Western civilization, and even coming over to the Americas. Um, Prester John was a huge uh, impact on many people's lives, and in those times, and frankly, it affects us even to today. So
Yeah, this is all
this
really,
is a
like I
whole.
said. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, this is a very, very huge, massive, very interesting, fascinating subject. And you're absolutely right. What we revealed here is not to be found anywhere else. In fact, I'm surprised scholars haven't even jumped on this. I mean, the infamous Yehuda Liebs, as far as I'm concerned, has not stumbled upon some of the revelations that I provided here today, as far as I can tell, which is kind of shocking, because he's usually at the forefront of revelations of this sort. So I guess we're the first. So yeah. Just really amazing stuff, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. And that concludes this revelation. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom, shalom.